In the last video, I ended by talking about back EMF. It's what slows down a hybrid car when it's doing the regenerative braking. When it engages that generator, it takes force to turn the generator while it's generating. It doesn't take force to turn the coil of wire when it's not generating. I thought a short video explaining back EMF was in order. First, let's look at the case of a generator. In a generator, we put in mechanical energy and turn that loop of wire in the magnetic field, and we get out electrical energy. So we're going to put in mechanical work turning this loop of wire. And if we're looking down from the top, we're making this side go in this direction and this side go in this direction. It's going to rotate in the clockwise orientation looking down from above. This side over here is this side as we look down from above. The magnetic flux through this loop is being reduced. It's to the right. The magnetic flux through the loop is to the right, and it's getting smaller. So a current is going to get set up to try to add its own magnetic flux in that direction, which means it has to come up on this side and go down on this side to create the magnetic flux in that direction. So what are we doing? We're putting in work, turning this coil of wire clockwise as we look down from above. And as soon as we begin to turn it, it generates a current because it's hooked up to something like a battery. We're charging a battery, or maybe it's hooked up to a light. We're making the light come on. It's hooked up to something that completes a circuit. So a current can flow in this loop. Well, let's look at what happens to a current in a magnetic field. I have a current on this side that's coming up out of the page. I have a magnetic field that points to the right. What's the direction of the force on that current in the magnetic field? It's in that direction, isn't it? And what's the direction of the force on the other side? So I'm trying to rotate that coil of wire in the magnetic field. I'm trying to rotate it in the clockwise direction. And as soon as current starts to flow, the current feels a force that tries to rotate it in the counterclockwise direction. It's fighting me. That's what we call back EMF. It's that resistance that we have to overcome to make this thing generate. So if we unhook our generator from the battery or the light bulb or whatever it is, so there's no closed circuit, there's no path for current to flow, then current won't flow. And I can just turn that loop with no force at all. I can just turn that loop, no problem. But as soon as I hook it up to something that completes the circuit so current flows, it becomes very difficult to turn. That's for a generator. The same thing happens with a motor. In a motor, we put in electrical energy, we get out mechanical energy. So here we have a coil of wire sitting in a magnetic field. What are we going to do? We're going to run a current through it. Let's have our current coming up on this side and going down on this side. If the current is coming up on the left, that would be over here. What direction is the force on that current? It would be in this direction. And if it's going down the other side into the page, and the magnetic field is pointing to the right, the force would be toward the bottom of the page. So we have a loop sitting in a magnetic field. We turn a current on. The current feels a force, and that creates torque. The loop starts to rotate, And what happens as the loop starts to rotate? The flux through the loop becomes smaller. There's a flux through the loop here, and as that loop starts to rotate, it becomes smaller. And the loop doesn't like that. It tries to create a current that's going to add flux back in that direction. So what does it have to do? It's trying to create current that comes up on this side and goes down on this side. It's fighting the direction we're flowing the current. We turn on a source of EMF that forces current to flow in one direction, and as soon as that loop starts to turn, the loop generates a back EMF that is trying to push in the opposite direction. It's fighting us. And so we have to overcome that, and it takes energy to make this loop rotate.